Hello, race car drivers. This is Jeremy Ault from the Evolution Autocrosser YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about perfecting the slalom. Now, the slalom is one of the most fundamental and ubiquitous elements in an autocross. It's also one of the most important elements to get right, because if done improperly, you will lose a significant amount of time. In the previous video, episode 1, we demonstrated how staying tight on the cones and backsiding each one can make or break you. If you remember, going into the last slalom just before the finish line, my co-driver was ahead of me by several tenths. But then he went wide in the slalom, which slowed him down just enough to cost him the lead. So now we've seen proof that there is a right way and a wrong way to slalom, and that doing it the wrong way can cost you the win. But what exactly is the perfect slalom technique? The perfect slalom would be done at the absolute maximum speed at which a tire will hold grip for the given angle of the turn necessary to circumvent the cone while driving the arc that minimizes the lateral distance necessary to do so. In other words, going as fast as physics allows while staying as close to each cone as humanly possible. But why do they always tell you to backside the cones? Well, in my opinion, here are two very good reasons. First, by driving past the cone on the backside, you ensure an early setup for the next cone so you don't fall behind and hit the next cone head on. Second, backsiding will allow you to accelerate earlier at the exit of the slalom. This, I believe, is the most compelling reason why you want to backside the cones. Take, for example, a 5-cone slalom. Once you get past cones 1, 2, and 3, you can now start turning back and immediately start accelerating at or possibly before cone 4, and then let the car push out towards the front of cone 5. Ideally, it should feel like you aren't quite going to make it around the last cone as you barely slip by with the throttle down. Let's go back to the definition of a perfect slalom for just a moment. Remember that part about staying as close to each cone as humanly possible? Let me show you why. I want to introduce you to the slalom formula, which is a magical formula that was devised by some genius autocrossers back in the 90s that will give you the fastest theoretical time from cone to cone in a slalom. This formula will also tell you exactly how much time is lost when you drive too far off the cone. In the slalom formula, there are only two variables, d, which is the lateral distance in feet that you must travel from one side to the other to get around each cone, and g, which is the maximum lateral grip of the vehicle in Gs. You'll notice that there is no variable for the distance between the cones because the speed at which you can go through the slalom increases in direct proportion to the distance between the cones. Let's look at a few examples. Let's take a Mitsubishi Evolution that is about 5.5 feet wide and has 0.8 Gs of lateral grip on street tires with a cone that is 1 foot wide at the base. Using the formula, we can see that it takes 1.119 seconds per cone. This is the fastest theoretical time that you can drive from cone to cone in a slalom in this car with this grip. Now remember that in our 5-cone slalom example, you're shortcutting the last 1 or 2 cones, so the formula only applies to the cones you must arc around. But what happens if we miss a cone by 1 foot on each side? Then we have increased d not by 1 foot, but by 2 feet. So now the formula shows 1.280 seconds per cone. That's 0.161 seconds slower per cone. And remember, this formula assumes that you're driving at the maximum amount of lateral Gs that the tire is capable of. Drive slower than that, and you're losing even more time. Now that we've covered theory, let's find out how we can develop slalom skills between races and during the off-season. Today, I'll be instructing one of my autocross friends and fellow Evo owners, Chris, on how to practice the slalom. I wanted to set up a cone slalom course and have him drive through and backside the cones at low speed.
Except there's one problem. I didn't have enough time to get any orange cones.
Okay.
So, instead, I got oranges.
All right.
So now with the course of oranges set up, we were ready to give it our first try.
We're going around the first cone. Nice and close. Oh, he ran over it.
I hit one. I hit two. looks bad.
Well, that didn't go so well. I explained to Chris that one of the main reasons why we either hit cones or miss them by several feet is because we aren't familiar with where the edge of the car is. So we set out to try a technique that might help solve that problem.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go.
Out on the road, I had Chris maneuver his passenger side tires closer and closer to the lane divider reflectors until he just started to touch them, then back off. The purpose of this exercise was to find and learn where the edge of the car was.
Where you need to line up.
Yeah, you can actually go a lot closer to them than I thought. Like, they're pretty much almost centered with the windshield wiper sprayer right here on the right.
Exactly. That's the whole point, yeah.
Once Chris had become more familiar with where the edge of his car was, we were ready to try the orange slalom again. After a few more tries, Chris was properly backsighting the slalom oranges while staying nice and close to each one. Of course, practicing slaloms at slow speeds and running over lane reflectors can only do so much to prepare you for a real autocross slalom. And because slaloms can be very challenging to get perfect at speed, the best way to really perfect the slalom is to take the basic concepts and theories learned here and attend as many events as possible where you can work on your technique. After all, you know what they say, practice makes perfect.